Let's talk about the majority of domestic workers and the impact of COVID-19. Many have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. I'm going to speak to you about a report coming out of Kenya and Nigeria and also here in South Africa. It's the Sweep South report on pay and working conditions. The report first conducted across those three countries. So what has it actually told us? Let's unpack the data. What a pleasure. Aisha Pandor, CEO and founder of Sweep South. Joining us, Aisha, I understand, from Cape Town this morning. Thank you for the cold weather. I see you're sending us more cold weather in Johannesburg. Just how bad has COVID-19 been for domestic workers?
Thanks for having me, Gareth. I think along with many workers in the country and in sub-Saharan Africa, we've seen domestic workers be drastically impacted by the pandemic. And when I say impacted, impacts on earnings, impacts on employment and unemployment, impacts on mental health, and obviously on physical health as well.
What are the stats behind this? Are we able to give us a 1 in 5, a 1 in 10? I mean, just if you can paint a picture with numbers, if possible.
Yes, so in our survey this year, we surveyed around 7,000 domestic workers from South Africa, the majority being from South Africa and then also from Kenya and Nigeria. And we found that across the board, there was unemployment as a result of the pandemic. So numbers in South Africa from our survey, about 20% of surveyed workers saying that they had lost their jobs due to the pandemic, and then up to 40%, almost 40% in Nigeria. And that's obviously, a huge impact, people who now have to try and find other sources of income. We also saw a drastic increase in food costs, so many people reducing the amount that they could spend on food, which for us, considering that so many domestic workers have dependents or have children, who they have to feed, this has been quite a worrying statistic.
Also, I imagine it's important to remember just how low the wages are for domestic workers around the world, obviously, but particularly in these three countries. It's drastically low, isn't it? So when you say that there are dependents, there's already a low income base to start off with. It's barely enough to get through a month. Now you throw COVID-19 in there. Aisha, are you able to narrow down for me, because we've had various stages of lockdown now, haven't we? Stay level 5, 4, all the way down to 1. Now we're going back, it seems, into higher levels. Was there a particular point in the last, let's call it 18 months there or thereabouts, where this was particularly bad? And is there any hope of a recovery?
I think so. The encouraging thing is that this year, so we published this report annually. We published it last year just after the most stringent lockdowns, and that was when the impacts were felt the worst, as can be expected. So we have seen some recovery in earnings and in employment year on year versus last year. But again, obviously we need to go into a lockdown considering the situation around the country. But this more stringent lockdown, the worse the effects on domestic workers and other workers around the country.